Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to another new episode of What If Naruto Was a League Summoner. If you guys enjoy this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel after watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So now let's start this video. What do you think you are doing, old man? Naruto asked in a dead serious tone as he glared at Oden while holding Rost at his neck, stopping the old man from doing whatever lecherous thing he had intended to do to Akeno before he could do it. Having felt a presence creeping up behind them just a moment before they could leave, Naruto had wasted no time to act, spinning around with Rost at the ready to behead the fool that dared to sneak up on him and his friends, only to see that it was none other than the chief deity of the Norse gods, Oden, who merely smirked in response and raised a single finger to stop the darkened scythe from reaching his neck. Geez, way so serious, you disrespectful brat. Oden chuckled as he flicked his finger and pushed Rost back, allowing Naruto to hold the darkened weapon at his side. I simply wish to check out those irresistible curves of a beautiful young woman. There's no need for you to be so possessive, he added, laughing in amusement when Naruto pushed Akeno a bit behind him to stand between her and Oden. What are you doing here, Oden-sama? Rose Swice asked, crossing her arms in annoyance as she glared at her former boss. I'm happy to see that you have found a place among the devils, Rose Swice. Oden rolled his eyes and said sarcastically while continuing to smirk at them, though, why does everyone have to be so hostile? Is this really how you treat the one who has come to help you? Before any of them could do it, Azazel had spoken up first and answered Oden's question in a calm tone. Ashia Argento has been taken by the enemies. Instantly, the smirk on Oden's face disappeared, his eyes whitening slightly as he glanced over Naruto and the rest of Ria's peerage. So that devil kid really went that far, huh? The chief god of Norse mythology asked, his tone lacking its usual playfulness, as he seemed to have understood why the Gremory group was on edge. I'm terribly sorry. It's fine, Oden-sama. Ria shook her head and spoke to Oden, who raised a hand to stroke his beard in a calm manner. I take that you guys wish to come rescue your friend now, right? Oden asked and Naruto nodded his head back at him in response. As you might have already known by now, we are under attack from the Chaos Brigade, specifically the old Demon King factions and their allies. They have covered this game field in an incredibly powerful and almost unbreakable barrier, so you won't be able to do anything unless the one holding it is dealt with first. Then how did you get in? Naruto couldn't help but ask. The situation reminded him a little of the Battle of Reykjavik, where they had to take down certain enemies to bring down the barriers around the city, to allow reinforcements to come aid them in the fight against the hero faction. When I gave one of my eyes to the Mimizburner, I became familiar with these types of demonic powers, magics, and other spells. The same applies for barriers too, so I know my way around them. Oden replied and removed his monocle to show his supposedly missing left eye. Instead of an eyeball, his eye socket was filled with a crystal with magical letters engraved on it. With this, I can easily break this barrier and get you out, but it's obvious you don't want to leave this field just yet, correct? We will not leave until Ashia is safe. Rias answered firmly as her peerage nodded their heads in agreement. Well, considering that Daidora is ally of Chaos Brigade, he has to be dealt with too. Oden spoke with a small smile before he was interrupted by a war cry from a small army of enemies, charging at them from afar. The enemy is the chief of the Norse gods. Our name will rise if we take his head here. One of devils declared before they began to fire their demonic powers at him, blinded by false self-esteem and possible glory of being the one who had taken the head of an almighty god. As Naruto and the others prepared to take on the attacks that were shot at them, Oden merely waved his hand dismissively for them to step back, before he tapped his cane on the ground once, and the demonic powers were repelled and disappeared as a result, causing everyone but Rose Swice and Azazel to gasp and look at the Norse god in amazement. Go rescue your friend now. Leave these enemies to me and Azazel. Oden said with a small laugh as the enemy devils looked at him in shock, but it wasn't long before they recovered and got ready to attack again, as they were joined by even more devils of the old Demon King faction, becoming an even greater in number. Azazel didn't look impressed, however, as he walked up to stand next to Oden, smirking while spinning a familiar golden spear around in his hand. Oden then pointed his rod towards the youngsters, and the Gremory group was enveloped in a small divine aura. That should protect you, but it will only last for a couple of minutes, so better hurry up. You heard him, go. Save Ashia. Azazel said, making his wings appear before taking off into the air, as Oden turned his attention back to the army of devil terrorists again, his cane transforming into a long, three-pronged spear. The chief god then pointed his weapon forward and unleashed a blast of divine energy, which obliterated more than half the army devils in mid-lane, before the others were killed by Azazel, who conjured hundreds of light weapons in the air, and then sent them down upon the devils below. Thanks, Oden Jiji. You aren't just a perverted old man after all. Naruto grinned at Oden, making him scoff and roll his eyes at him. Just go already, brat. The chief god then looked at Rose Swice, and told her with a small smirk, go with them. Protect your family. Yes. Oden-sama. The white-haired Valkyrie nodded her head, before casting a spell and form a protective barrier around the group, further fortifying their defense. Thank you, Odin-sama. I will leave this place to you. Ryuz bowed her head toward Odin before she spun around and let her peerage out of their base, heading into the bottom lane's jungle, the only path for them to avoid being seen and attacked immediately by the enemies that were flooding toward their base from all three lanes. The group of devils parted away from the main force and tried to stop them from advancing, but they were instantly dealt with by Naruto, Kiba and Zenobia, as the others' projectiles of demonic powers being deflected and repelled by Rose Swice's barrier and Odin's divine aura. By the time that the aura had disappeared and Naruto defeated the last devil to go after his friends, the Gremory group had made it into the forest and got away from the main battle. Ari, Akali, Kaisa, I need you three to watch our flanks and behind. Naruto said upon summoning the KDA in their original form to his side. Because the match was already cancelled, there's no need for him to restrain himself by just using the powers of Kane, Aphelios and Kayana. Furthermore, he had no reason to hold back when Ashia was in danger. Do not let anyone sneak up on us. You got it, Naruto. Ari nodded her head to her summoner before running away using her spirit rush, disappearing behind the trees. Kaisa then engulfed herself in plasma energy and dashed away in the opposite direction, leaving Akali to trail back behind them and watch them from behind as the group continued to advance forward. Where do you need me? Evelyn asked while running beside Naruto, her tone lacking its usual playfulness. Having been sitting in the spectator stand to watch the match with the rest of the KDA, Evelyn knew what happened, and so the lack of emotion on her face was clear evidence that she wasn't in her usual good mood. You will know as soon as we got our hands on that fucking bastard. Naruto answered, allowing a dark smirk to appear on Evelyn's face, as the demoness shrouded herself in darkness and disappeared from sight. Naruto, meanwhile, could still see her running with him as he regrouped with Ryuz and the others, who were all flying with their wings to move as fast as they could, with the exceptions being Kiba and Zenobia, and Gasper who was in his bat form. Come on, the river is just ahead. We are halfway to Blue Team's base. Ryuz informed them, and the group only sped up even more after that. Just before they could reach the river, however, Daidora's voice suddenly echoed throughout the field. I see that you guys are halfway to me already, Ryuz Gremory and her servants. Odin and Azazel are really a nuisance interfering with our game like that, so why don't we play another? How about we make it a substitute for our cancelled raiding game? We have no time for games, Daidora. Stop hiding in your base and come out here to face us. Ryuz shouted, knowing that if Daidora knew where they were at the moment, then he could very well hear what they were saying. But where is the fun in doing that? It's not like you and your servants can stand a chance against me anyway. I'm giving you a chance to make it interesting, to excite me before I take Ashia for myself. Let's have a match while using our pieces. The rule is simple, you can't use the same pieces again until you reach where I'm at right now. Do not try to break this rule, because I can promise you that it won't be pretty for pure and innocent Ashia. Naruto gritted his teeth and gripped his fist so hard that blood began to drip from his palms, but he knew that he couldn't risk Ashia's safety. He had no choice but to follow whatever Daidora was planning, at least for now. So for the first match, I will be sending my 8 pawns and 2 rooks. By the way, all of my pawns have promoted to a queen. Ryuz and her servants widened their eyes in shock at that. Yes, it's 8 queens from the beginning, but that should be fine for Ryuz Gremory, who possesses powerful servants. Daidora mocked before the aforementioned 10 arrived before them via teleportation magic circles, standing on the other side of the river with their aura of demonic power overflowing. TCH, I should expect as much from a scum like you. Ryuz scoffed before she turned around to look at her group before announcing loudly, very well, I will show you what my beloved servants are capable of. Yudo, Zenobia, Kaneko and Gasper, you 4 will take the lead for us. Wait, I can. Naruto argued, giving his girlfriend a hard look as he stepped forward to talk to her. However, before he could say anything, Ryuz had already turned toward him and told him firmly, no Naruto, I want you to save your anger for Daidora, because I know that even I won't be able to stop you when we reach him. Ryuz. Naruto said, his eyes softening a little. Yeah, just leave this one to us, Naruto-kun. Kiba, who was sporting a confident smile, said as he stepped forward and patted Naruto on his shoulder, making the blonde turn his head around to look at his comrade. Zenobia nodded her head in agreement as she put Durandal on her shoulder, and stepped up to stand beside her fellow knight of Ryuz Gremory. Ashia is my friend too, you know, Naruto. Even if I want to kill Daidora myself when we reach him for what he did, I know that I will only get in your way. She finished, glancing to the spot where Evelyn was standing in her demon shade form. I will also do my best. I'm also a man of Ryuz Gremory's peerage. Gasper, who was extremely nervous, was able to gather his courage to speak up, his fist in the air as he walked up with Kaneko, who simply gave Naruto an assuring nod before joining Kiba and Zenobia, as they started making their way toward the group of promoted pawns and rooks. Guys. Naruto called before the 4 could enter the river, making them turn around to look at him. Good luck. He said while smiling at them, before walking back to stand next to Ryuz and giving her a small nod, which she responded with one of her own and a soft smile. The battle began, and Naruto could see why Rias had sent out Kiba, Zenobia, Kaneko and Gasper to face the 10 members of Daidora's peerage, 8 of whom were pawns promoted to queens, and 2 were rooks. The rooks were known for their strong offense and defense power, but they were also famous for being slow in movements, allowing high-speed fighters like Kiba, and one who was also as relentless as Zenobia to beat them quite easily. "Let's do this, Zenobia," Kiba shouted as he rushed toward the enemy rooks with Zenobia, before the 2 rooks could even get in range to attack them. Although they moved surprisingly fast for their positions, both of them were no match for Kiba and Zenobia, who cut them down in quick succession with Durandal and the Sword of Betrayer. Their strong defense, meanwhile, allowed them to get back to their feet, but the divine aura of Zenobia's holy sword suddenly increased in power several times over, before the blue-haired girl slashed it down, unleashing a crescent-shaped arc that rushed toward Daidora's rooks at blinding speed, blasting off everything in its path with its tremendous holy power. The slash enveloped both Rook and the entire area of the river around them, generating an explosion that echoed across the field as it hit its intended target. Gasper, Kaneko, cover Zenobia and Kiba's attack. Rias gave the order, and instantly the 2 youngest members of their group rushed in to gather around Zenobia, who stabbed her sword down to support herself while breathing heavily. The attack just then looked like it had taken a lot from her, but Zenobia had done her part. Now it was the other 3's turn. As the group of pawns, who had managed to dodge Zenobia's attack thanks to their queen promotion, rushed in to try taking down a worn-out Zenobia, Kaneko unleashed a barrage of Senjutsu aura blasts at them, forcing them back to dodge. Utilizing the knight attribute of the queen, 3 of them engaged Kaneko in combat, while the other 4 tried to take Kiba on, only for the girl to not only match them in speed, but overwhelm them in strength, seemingly having no problem defending both Zenobia and Gasper, who was nowhere near the level of a capable combatant. Leaping back to their side of the river, the group of pawns prepared for another attack, only for Kiba to charge at them, and at first glance, it looked like he was about to take all 8 pawns on by himself. Despite his skills and speed, the male knight of Rias Gremory was vastly outnumbered, and the odds seemingly was against him, until a smirk suddenly appeared on his face, as he dodged to the side at the last possible moment, revealing 2 small orbs with a yellow gear on top, flying toward the enemy pawns. Before they could react, the 2 orbs enlarged and grew to the size of a basketball ball before detonating at the same time. But instead of creating a heat explosion, they generated a dome field that stopped time itself in its range, freezing 3 pawns on their track, and allowing Kiba to go in and cut them down with relative ease. Finally acknowledging the danger, the rest of the pawns began to dodge, as Kaneko threw more time bombs that she got from Gasper at them, though it soon proved to be excessively difficult due to Kiba attacking them with his great speed. While preparing to go rescue Ashia, Azazel had given them full access to his shop, and among the items that they had grabbed for the mission were Gasper's exclusive items, Zillion's time bombs, special hextech devices that absorbed the time-controlling power of its wielder, and unleashed it when detonated, giving Gasper a much easier time using the ability of his sacred gear. Though because he wasn't very good at aiming, yet, and his arms were rather weak, it had been decided that Kaneko would be the one who threw them for him, as her great physical strength allowed her to throw those bombs faster than a speeding bullet. Still, since the bombs were thrown in a simple manner and less effective than Gasper's direct gaze, it did not take it long for Daidora's pawns to catch on to their patterns as well as range, and dodge them before they could be caught in the frozen field. By the time that they had managed this, however, Kiba and Kaneko had taken down another one of them. "You're just a rook." One of the pawns growled in frustration as Kaneko maneuvered between her attacks at great speed and grace to get closer to her. "How are you moving so fast?" she screamed, as Kaneko leaped into the air and punched her square in the face. Another pawn tried to aid her, but Kaneko had already disappeared, moving so fast that her body became a blur before she got behind her and attacked with a Senjutsu palm strike, immobilizing her on the ground, before the shell-shocked girl could even muster a word. "Daizu-kun's bombs don't just stop time, you know," Kaneko said as she juggled a time bomb in her right hand, which was glowing while the gear was moving slowly, that she had received from Gasper before rushing in to aid Kiba. The cat girl then looked to the side to see Kiba finishing up the remaining pawns, having borrowed Zenobia's Durandal, and wielded them against the enemies in an even deadlier manner than Zenobia herself could do. "Good work, all of you." Once the battle had finished, Akeno spoke with a genuine smile, as she and Rias stepped up to bind the surviving members of Daidora's peerage with a spell. Naruto moved towards Zenobia and held her back to her feet, receiving a thankful smile from her, as Kiba walked to her and returned Durandal to her. Since he was not its chosen wielder, excessive use of the sword would only damage him more than the enemies could ever do. "It's done," Rias announced as she stood up, having finished tying up the last of the pawns. "Now, let's get going." With that said, Rias crossed the river with her group and proceeded into the enemy's jungle. It did not take it long for them to encounter the next group of Daidora's servants, who were his bishops and queen. "We were expecting you, Rias Gremory-sama. I shall fight you here as my master's queen. The 2 behind me are Daidora-sama's bishops." "Very well then, allow me to go, Rias," Akeno said simply as she stepped forward, her 2 hands crackling with holy lightning. "I will join this round as well." Rose Swice nodded her head and volunteered herself. If this is a battle of magic power, then I definitely will not lose. Ayaz crossed her arms, but nodded her head nonetheless at the two. Very well then. Good luck to you two. With that, the battle between magic users began, with Diodora's queen unleashing a tremendous pillar of demonic power at the Akeno and Rose Swice, but the latter instantly stepped in and raised a barrier in front of her and Akeno to shield them from the attack. Naruto had not seen Rose Swice in action before, but he had been told by Rias that as a Valkyrie his civic teacher had magic power great enough to be recognized for her position as the bodyguard of Odin. Even Le Fay, the descendant of the legendary witch Morgan Le Fay, had said that Rose Swice's talent in Norse magic was on a level of its own. Furthermore, using the trait of a rook, Rose Swice should be able to use defensive magic to an even greater effectiveness, and it had shown when her barrier was able to withstand the enemy queen's demonic power attack. Our turns. Let's go, Rose Swice sensei. Akeno cried, and Rose Swice lowered her barrier down to allow Akeno to unleash a strike of holy lightning at the enemies. But the enemy bishops behind their queen quickly did their job by channeling their magic power flowed into the queen, while maintaining a defensive barrier around her, serving as her supports. Combining their strength, the three magic combatants of Diodora's peerage created numerous magic seals in the air that unleashed a barrage of spells at the teacher-student duo. Such combo of magic attacks was not shown in the video recording of Diodora's fight with Sigvera, though Rias had expected that the queen and bishops could produce that level of fire powers. On the other hand, while the enemies could have already suspected that Rose Swice was strong in defensive magic because she was a rook, they definitely did not know that she was already even more powerful in offensive magic. Let's combine our strength too, Akeno-san. Rose Swice spoke as she outstretched her arms and created herself even more magic circles than the three servants of Diodora, causing them to stumble back in shock at the insane display of magic. Even the field began to shake violently at the gathering of Rose Swice's demonic power. Akeno, who managed to recover from her own surprise first, unleashed a thunderous strike of holy lightning that only paled in comparison to the bombardment of magic of almost every attribute and type from Rose Swice, blowing up half the forest before them, and leaving the enemy queen and bishops on the ground, with injuries and wounds all over their bodies, once the smoke and dust had been cleared. That was amazing, Rose Swice-sensei. Akeno complimented as the rest of the group ran up to them and showered her with praises, making the former bodyguard of Odin blush a bit. Yeah, you were really strong. Naruto nodded his head in agreement. He had never seen such a level of magic power like that before, even from Akeno and Rias. Ah, thank you. Rose Swice smiled nervously while looking at them. Alright, let's go everyone. Ashia is just right up ahead. Rias spoke, giving Naruto a meaningful nod before the two of them led their group forward. With Rose Swice's bombardment of magic already destroying half the forest before them, the path was clear for them to reach Ashia, Diodora and his remaining servants. Rias and Akeno occasionally fired off their own attacks from behind their magic barrier, but the enemy bishops behind their queen quickly did their job, as their magic power flowed into the queen, serving as support and alternative fuel, followed by even more magic seals that fired even more demonic powers. This kind of combo was not shown in the video recording of Diodora's fight with Sigvera, thus everyone did not expect that the queen and bishops alone could produce that kind of firepower. Once they had entered Blue Team's base, it did not take it long for them to spot Diodora, who was comfortably lounging back in a large comfy throne with a bowl of grapes in his lap, as well as a thin glass of wine between his fingers next to the blue nexus, his two knights standing before him with their swords in hand. In stark contrast, Ashia was being imprisoned within the blue crystal of the nexus, her arms and legs bound by ropes and chains. Ashia. Naruto instantly felt himself once again being consumed by anger when he saw Ashia and Diodora, who had a smug smile on his face, despite the fact that he had just lost more than half of his peerage to them. The blonde nun smiled weakly when she heard her name being called. Her red knuckles were clear evidence that she had been trying to break out of the blue crystal. Naruto-san. Let her go, you sick fuck. Rias said, directing her murderous gaze at Diodora, who merely took a sip of his drink. Such vulgar mouth, coming from the heiress of the Gremory. This is the reason why I can never stand girls like you. Diodora chuckled as he extended his hand forward, making his two knights charge at them. But the game continues, let's see how you fare against the two strongest. But before he could even finish his sentence, Naruto had leaped over Rias with Gravitum in his hand, and fired black hole-like projectiles at the two servants of Diodora, before activating its powers, stopping them in their tracks, and completely immobilizing them in the spots. Before they could even try to freeze themselves, Naruto shot down with Frost in hand, and swung the scythe in the reaping slash, shattering their swords when the two girls tried to defend themselves with them, and sending them flying away with deep gashes on the side of their bodies. You next. Naruto growled as he stood up and shook the blood off of his side. However, Diodora did not even look worried. I would have felt threatened by your threats, Naruto Uzumaki, if you weren't the most pathetic low-born fool to ever grace my sight. Diodora stated pleasantly as he put his glass of wine down his throat. Still, I have to thank you for saving Ashia from those fallen angels back then. It is thanks to you that she could find her way back to me after all this time. You know why I want Ashia for myself, Naruto Uzumaki. Diodore then stood up from his throne and continued, I actually have something of a fetish for nuns and sisters. I think the ultimate test of skill for me is taking women who are so devoted to their religion and making them submit to me instead. There's nothing more fun for me than slowly breaking down a nun and seeing them worshipping me as if I am their lord himself. Diodore lightly chuckled, before breaking down into a full laugh, but you see, of all the nuns that I have broken, there is none as beautiful and as pure as Ashia, so I couldn't help myself. I thought after getting her branded as a traitor and excommunicated from the church, I could swoop in and take her, but she was snatched up by those fallen angels before I could do it. Diodore then scoffed, before another pleasant smile appeared on his face, but thankfully, you rescued her and allowed her to return to me. Are you done? Naruto growled, since you're still the heir of the Astaroth and a relative of Ijuka-san, the man I deeply respect, I will give you a chance to surrender. A certain champion of mine is dying to get her hands on you, and I can assure you that the longer you make her wait, the harder she will be. The blonde finished, and even though he wasn't looking at Evelyn, he knew that the corner of her mouth just curved up into a creepy smirk, like that of a dark opera mask with a smiling face. And what if I refuse? Diodore asked simply, as if he didn't think it was too much of a threat. Then I will beat you to a bloody pulp, and then give you over to her. Naruto answered coldly, as he held up Frost and pointed the blade at Diodore. Either way, you will be the first being of this world to learn what agony's embrace means. So annoying, you and that children's game of yours. Diodore mocked before holding his hand out and raising his palm. Very well then, allow me to show you the difference in power of a high-class devil and a low CRR or CK. Ryuz had an urge to cringe when she heard that sound of Naruto's fist shrinking into Diodore's face and breaking his skull. Before he could even recover or cry out in pain, Naruto had grabbed him by the back of his head and smashed him through his throne, making it flip over as Diodore fell face first into the ground, blood flowing down from his badly damaged face. Drink your phoenix tears. Naruto said simply as he walked back to Frost and picked the darkened weapon up. I know that like us, you have two of them in your possession. Use them to recover so I can break that smile in again. Diodore did just that, taking out the 2 vials of phoenix tears from his pocket and drank them both. He almost dropped them because of dizziness, but still the 2 vials of phoenix tears did the trick and allow his face to mend back to its original shape. Naruto had noticed that none of Diodore's servants had used phoenix tears to recover during the fights against the members of their group, so it's obvious to him that the bastard had kept them for himself. You're going to regret this, you lowborn piece of shit. Diodore gritted his teeth as he unleashed his demonic power, but Naruto swiftly dodged to the side, leaving a trail of dark orb behind him as he sidestepped the attack. I am a high-class devil. I am the relative of the current Beelzebub. There's no way that a noble blood like myself will lose to a lowly, filthy reincarnated devil like you. You know, Razor Phoenix used to say the same thing before I broke his wills to keep on fighting. Naruto stated coldly as he dodged a barrage of spells from Diodore, causing the high-class devil to grow in frustration. But at least the guy is not a twisted, mentally fucked shit like you. Naruto said, as he spun Frost around and cleaved a fireball in half before rushing toward Diodore, who quickly attempted to conjure layers upon layers of magic barrier to defend himself. Holding Frost behind him, Naruto enveloped himself in shadow and became intangible with Kane's Shadow's step ability, allowing him to move through Diodore's barriers, like they were nothing but air to send a direct hook to the side of his face, sending him crashing through his own barrier before falling down and rolling on the ground like a ragdoll. I know you have one last trump card up your sleeve. Use it. Naruto commanded as he cracked his bloody knuckle. Despite having a sense of satisfaction for being able to beat up Diodore finally, Naruto couldn't help but feel nothing but rage. Shut up, you lowborn shit. And with that, he took out what Naruto and everyone had been waiting for, an officer's snake, one of the snakes that she had created for Chaos Brigade before she left them and switched to their side. Naruto, stand back, Ryuz. Ryuz tried to go in and aid him, knowing full well what would happen if Diodore used the snake to empower himself, but her boyfriend stopped her from doing so in a cold, chilling tone, making Ryuz instinctively take a step back in caution. Naruto had never spoken to her in that tone before. Naruto then turned back to Diodore, who raised the snake over his head and let his mouth hang wide open. The black snake then slowly dropped itself into his mouth and slithered down his throat. The orc watched on as the twisted Astaroth air swallowed the power-manifested creature whole, before looking down and wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. Instantly, the ground underneath him cracked and the air around him exploded, as Diodore unleashed the full might of his empowered demonic power. The Astaroth air laughed maniacally as his orb became a blazing flame, so great that everyone in the Devil's Rift could see it and feel the tremendous pressure. Yes. This is it. This is the power of Office at full force. Diodore roared in laughter before he held his hand out and unleashed a pillar of raw demonic power, forcing Naruto to run to the side to dodge. But the Astaroth air did not let up, and turned the pillar of demonic power after the blonde, chasing him across the blue base. Ahahaha. Hahaha. Run, you filthy fly. twirling around when he stepped onto the eastern wall of the base. Naruto then launched himself at Daidora at blinding speed, becoming intangible once again, using Shadow Step to maneuver himself in the air between Daidora's attacks before reaching Daidora. The Astaroth Air instantly unleashed an empowered barrier that would disintegrate everything its touch in the spot, but Naruto suddenly disappeared from sight entirely, leaving only the image of the dark scythe above Daidora's head, and a dark aura around his body. Despite the triumphant he had felt earlier, Daidora couldn't help but feel a chilling shiver running down his spine when he heard Naruto's mechanical chuckle echoing in his mind for a second, before the blonde bursting out from the Astaroth Air himself, finishing the assassinating move, Umbral Trespass, with a deadly slash across Daidora's torso. PHH. The Astaroth Air cried in pain as he fell down while holding his chest, trying to stop the bleeding. At the same time, he tried to attack Naruto, who instantly reacted to his attempt by dashing toward him with the Little Chakram that were glowing in 3 different colors, Kayana's weapon, and hurled it forward when he was right before Daidora, sending out a wind blast that knocked Daidora back toward a Nexus turret before exploding outward violently, sending the structure crumbling down upon the Astaroth Air. Not bad. Ross chuckled as the only eye on the darkened side seemed to shiver in excitement. Shut up, Ross. I don't need your opinion right now. Aye, boss. The Darkin mocked, with a hint of amusement in his voice as Naruto walked toward Daidora, who was trying to get back up to his feet, and kicked him in the face, hard enough to break his nose, but not enough to leave him fatally injured again. Because it's time for him to reintroduce the bastard to a certain champion of his. Evelyn, he's yours. Finally, the ancient demon emerged, becoming visible once again with a gleeful look on her face as she stood over Daidora, smiling sweetly down at him, as her lashes moved slowly and dangerously above her head. Why hello there. Remember me? Evelyn asked, bending down to look at Daidora. Her face then twisted and became like that of her smiling face in her demon shade form for a split second, but that was more than enough for Daidora to become extremely terrified of her. Let's have a lot of fun from now on, shall we? Don't kill him, Eve. Naruto said, walking up to the ancient demoness who got some ropes from Akeno, make it slow and painful. Plus, he might hold valuable intel of Chaos Brigade that can benefit the Alliance, make sure that he talks and tells us everything. You don't have to tell me, Han. Evelyn giggled as she leaned forward and kissed Naruto on the cheek. Thank you for letting me have him, now go free Ashia. Will do. Naruto said, taking a deep breath as he turned his attention over to Ashia, who was smiling in relief while looking at him as Rias and the rest of her peerage gathered around them. How did they even put her in there anyway? He couldn't help but ask, walking up to Rias. It will hurt Ashia inside if we break it down with force, so let me use my demonic power. It's much easier and safer for her that way. Rias told him softly, receiving a nod from Naruto as he reached up and placed a hand on the surface of the crystal, right before Ashia's hand, as she put both of hers on the other side. Naruto said, smiling at the blonde who returned him with her own loving smile. Hold on just a bit more, Ashia. We will get you out. She then turned toward Rias, who had begun to use her demonic power to break through the glowing blue crystal, by pushing her hand, that was covered in a focused aura of power of destruction slowly forward. Since it was designed to not be easily destroyed by the combined powers of an entire peerage, it would surely take her some time to create a hole large enough for Ashia to crawl through. Lucho-san, you don't have to call me that, Ashia. Rias shook her head and gave Ashia a comforting smile. After all, I consider you my little sister. Then can I call you Rias-sama? It will be my pleasure, Ashia. The crimson-haired girl warmly replied. Ugh, this scene is gonna make me puke. All heads then turned to Rost when he said that. Shut up, will you? Naruto scoffed and rolled his eyes at the Darkin, before he held him out toward Evelyn's direction. The demon was thinking of the best way to bind Daidora with the ropes in her hands, and couldn't decide whether or not she should tie him up with his blood vessels or his own skin as well. Both options aroused her. Of course, you want me to give you to Eve. You Darkin don't like her very much, do you? I will pass, thank you very much. The Darkin weapon replied. Why are you still here though? Naruto couldn't help but ask while rubbing his chin thoughtfully. Normally, a weapon would disappear when he replaced it with something else, but Ross seemed to be lingering around, even as Kayana's elemental chakram had gone back to Runeterra. Could it be because he was a sentient weapon, and regarded as a champion alongside Kane, that he could stay or leave how he wished just like Evelyn or Ori? Well, I became faster than Naruto could react. Before Kane could finish his sentence, Naruto suddenly felt a dreadful sensation in the air. It was a tremendous amount of killing intent. His senses were instantly put on high alert, and the blonde spun around just in time to see light starting to gather around the crystal where Ashia was being imprisoned within. Rias, who was standing there beside the crystal, had a look of shock on her face, as she tried to figure out what's going on. Instantly, Naruto dropped Rost and ran as fast as his feet could carry him. Time seemed to slow down drastically as Naruto tried to reach out for Ashia, his hand reaching for her, just as the entire crystal was enveloped in bright light. Ryu's wrapped both arms around the crystal, as if she had realized what was happening, but there's little that she could do, and Kiba, who was standing much closer to them, had no choice but to go in and grab his master, pulling her away before she could be teleported away as well. Naruto, on the other hand, had hoped that he could make it in time, but it was too late. Ashiya had disappeared within the light as Naruto's hand grabbed onto empty air, his body tumbling on the ground as he lost his balance. Kiba and Rias fell back on their back, and the crimson-haired girl didn't even have time to ask Kiba what he had done. She could only look at the spot where Ashiya had been, still trying to comprehend what had just happened. Well, what happened? Where's Ashiya? Zenovia was the first to speak while everyone was still trying to process what happened. Hey, Naruto, what was that like just now? Where is Ashiya? Zenovia's tone began to quiver, but Naruto did not have an answer for her, as he stared at the empty nexus with a look of shock on his face. So you have been defeated here, Daidora, even with the snake of office we have given to you. The calm voice was heard, causing everyone but Naruto to turn their heads toward that direction, and see a man dressed in black armor with a cape walking toward them from outside the base. He had long brown hair that went to his hips with many bangs covering his right eye. It appears that our plans need to be adjusted. Who are you? Rias asked cautiously. She and Akeno were the first two to notice his scary aura of power, but it did not take it long for the others to see it as well. The man casted a disdainful gaze towards Rias as he answered her question. It's my first time meeting you, sister of the annoying fake Satan. My name is Shalba Beelzebub, the true successor of the great original Beelzebub. I'm different from the relative of the fake one over there on the ground. Then he turned his gaze to Daidora. Daidora Astaroth, we lend you our power and look where you are right now. In the match against the Gears, you used Office's snake without my authorization, and had the enemy see our plan. You are even more stupid than I thought. Daidora, who was on the ground, didn't seem to notice the insult in Shalba's tone, as he struggled against the ropes that were binding him, and shouted out desperately. Shalba, please help me. If it is with you, we can kill them. But Evelyn did not let him finish, as she raised her right foot and stomped down the side of Daidora's face, impaling the heel of her high heel through his cheeks, effectively shutting him up even as Daidora tried to scream, and filling his mouth up with blood. You? Evelyn asked in a low, dangerous tone as a wave of demonic shadow flared uncontrollably into the air from her body. Were you the one who did that to Ashiya? Where is she? I sent her to a place beyond this dimension. The crystal should keep her surviving for a couple seconds, but it will also become the very thing that gives her a slow and agonizing death. Shalba answered simply before continuing while looking at Rias. I will also have you die here, Rias Gremory. Shalba declared his intentions in a cold tone. I'm here to destroy the blood relatives of the fake Demon King. It won't mean anything if we don't have them taste despair first before we kill them. You scum. For you to kill Ashiya of all things. I absolutely won't forgive. Rias cried in rage as she enveloped herself in a tremendous, ground-shaking aura of power of destruction. Beside her, Akeno did the same thing with her holy lightning, not caring that the overwhelming holy attribute was hurting her own body. Kiba created his holy demonic sword, followed by the rest as they glared murderously at Shalba. In rage, Zenovia couldn't control herself and threw herself at Shalba with Durandal glowing with a ridiculous amount of holy power, even greater than what she had done before. I won't forgive you. I won't forgive you. I will cut you. I will cut you up and kill you. Weak. With that single word, Shalba used his own magic to conjure a barrier that easily withstood the power of her holy sword, before he proceeded to strike back at Zenovia with a blast of demonic power, sending the girl to fall back to the ground. Zenovia tried to get back to her feet, but tears were flowing down her cheeks as she looked up and glared venomously at Shalba. How could you? Ashiya, she is my friend. She is a kind girl, kinder than anyone. Why? Why? Because reincarnated devils are all garbage and need to be eliminated from this world. Shalba stated coldly. It starts with her and every one of you will be next. The descendant of the original Beelzebub then raised his hand in the air and summoned his demonic powers, along with a hive of bees to his side, as his power then increased to an even greater level. As Rias and her peerage got ready to fight Shalba, they were interrupted by an almost painful but full of anger shriek from Evelyn, who lost control of her own power, with her appearance becoming unstable. Darkness wrapped around her, and she became like that of a true demon, a terrifying formless being with the face of death itself. Interesting. Shalba arched an eyebrow in amusement as he raised a barrier to shield himself from Evelyn, as the ancient horror rushed toward him. Once I killed Rias Gremory and her servants, I will take you back to Chaos Brigade. You shall make a fine experiment, demon, he said, completely unfazed by the cracks that appeared on his barrier as Evelyn's shapeless face banged violently against the surface of it. Shalba then raised his other hand and snapped his head to the side to create a magic circle to block Naruto's attack with Frost. Naruto Uzumaki. The leader of our group is very interested in your sacred gear. Shalba said as he held Naruto back with relative ease. I shall take you back as well. Even if we lose here today, your capture will be as good as any victory. But Naruto was unresponsive to Shalba's statement, as he continued to push forward until cracks started appearing on Shalba's shield. Evelyn, who was glaring at Shalba with her twisted eyes, suddenly felt that something wasn't right about her summoner, and reverted back to her chosen form with a look of shock on her face. "No?" she whispered before running toward Riaz and the others, who had a look of confusion on their face, as they looked between Evelyn and Naruto. "Get back, all of you." She screamed and unleashed her darkness to shield the group away, just as Ross slipped from Naruto's hand and flew into the air. The blonde had a look of absolute rage on his face that couldn't be described with words, while tears were trickling down his cheeks. "I will kill you." With those words, Ross broke out in a fit of maniacal laughter and swung himself down, stabbing his blade into Naruto's chest. Dark energy began to gather around Naruto as he coughed out a mouthful of blood and screamed, his eyes boiling with blood as snarled like an animal. The blonde began to glow, with reddish electricity crackling around his body, which was then compressed into a small orb like that of a mini-sun before exploding violently, knocking Shalba back. When the flow of dark energy finally stopped, and Evelyn unwrapped her shadow round Riaz and Koz, they all looked up to see the one now holding the darkened scythe in his hands was no longer Naruto, but a towering demon-like being with a skull-like face, and 2 large horns on the side of his head. "That's..." Riaz uttered in horror as Evelyn stood protectively in front of her and her peerage, snarling angrily at both Shalba and the being. The situation had really gone from bad to worse. "Interesting, so you have a power like this too, Naruto." Before Shalba could finish it, the being had already appeared before him and grabbed his face, lifting him into the air with a dark chuckle. "No more Naruto, only Ross." Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below, and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.